Welcome to the Diesel Technician Roundtable of TechMission. I'm really excited about what we've got for panelists and kind of a diverse group of dealer independent. It's I think a really good mixture here, and really bringing some great insight to all of you that are attending to really understand what it is that a technician is looking for, understand what it is that maybe they don't really love about the industry, what they do love about the industry, and kind of everything in between. So I, as you can tell, am in Jacksonville, Florida in a hotel. So this is a little different than what we'll have day of, and that's so we're pre-recording this and really just to make sure that the techs had time to do this and didn't have to do it during the day. So we're going to start off our roundtable with some quick introductions of our roundtable and kind of go from there. So Ryan, I don't know if you'd want to start by introducing yourself.
Sure. My name is Ryan Meppelink. I've been a heavy equipment technician for just over a year now, working with Grand Equipment in Hudsonville, Michigan.
And Ryan has a cool story with representing the United States for World Skills in Russia. Pretty cool if you get a chance to look up Ryan and kind of what he did there. Pretty impressive, and he'll bring a lot of great insights. So thanks for joining us, Ryan.
Thank you.
Josh, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Josh Rohner. I work at Truck Country. It's a Freightliner dealership chain. I was a tech for quite a long time, and I actually just recently moved into the training side.
Love it. Shawn?
My name is Shawn James. I'm a diesel tech for Premier Cooperative. Work on a little bit of everything, over-the-road stuff, ag equipment. I've been in the industry for going on 14 years now.
That's crazy to think, Shawn.
That
makes me feel really old. Kaleb, how about you?
Hi, Kaleb Wells from Diesel Forward, Windsor, Wisconsin. Been working pretty much light duty, heavy duty, whatever comes through the door for 3 years through Diesel Forward and 4 years through another company. So
great. Well, thank you guys for joining us. I think we've kind of gone through what the panel is about, but I want to start by really asking you guys what your feeling is of the industry right now. And I know it's a really vague question, but what do you think of, what do you think kind of the general feeling from technicians are? Do you see the excitement still? Do you see kind of that desire to be in the industry? Is it something where if you could go back as an 18-year-old and come back out, you'd kind of make the same decision? Josh, I might start with you if that's okay.
No, that's fine. It is kind of a vague question. As far as a lot of techs coming into it, they seem to enjoy it. If I could go back and do it again, I probably would. For the most part, I enjoyed my job. I mean, I did a lot of diagnostics, and I enjoyed that part of the job.
That's great. Shawn, what do you think? I mean, you've been in it for 14 years now. Do you get kind of that same feeling that you did when you started?
Yeah, absolutely. I still enjoy what I do and look forward to coming to work most days anyway. But it's nice here. We get such a wide range. I've never worked on the same thing twice, so that helps too.
That's great. And Kaleb, you've been in it for what, 7 years? How do you feel? I mean, still kind of that same feeling as when you were coming in?
It's always been a passion of mine to work on vehicles. So it's been a hobby more so than a job. So coming to work most days is enjoyable. So it's the same thing. I'd choose it again. That's great.
And Ryan, you're probably the newest one to the field. What was it that made you kind of want to come to be a diesel tech?
I've got a long backstory to that. Short of it was an older cousin of mine had got me interested in it, and I was at the time looking for what was going to be my chosen career. If given the chance again, I would jump on it in a heartbeat. It's been a pleasant experience.
That's pretty awesome, and that's why, I mean, this panel that we've assembled for this particular roundtable is is pretty cool because we've got some passionate people about the business and about the industry. So I think that's really cool. Now, are you guys seeing anything that's different than that? Maybe you're probably the top of the top when it comes to diesel techs. You know, you're in really, really good shape. Do you see maybe people feeling differently that are in a shop? Is there, and this can go to any of you guys, do you see anybody that, or maybe the majority are like you or like something else? Shawn, maybe I'll start with you.
I don't necessarily see, we've got a young kid here that's got a lot of drive, really interested in everything. I think the main issue that we're seeing that you and I have talked about in the past, Jay, is the lack of interest coming into the field is the main concern. I mean, the average age of technicians nowadays is getting older and older all the time, and that's what I see in for future is running out of people to actually do our jobs.
That's interesting. And Ryan, we were talking about when I had met you, it was at a advisory committee meeting for Madison College, just outside of Madison, Wisconsin there. And the funny part about that meeting, from what I recall, was they had two of their top students in the program that were coming up, and they talked at the advisory committee meeting. And one of the things that was shocking to me was that they said the majority of the kids in the class didn't have jobs, and they didn't have jobs in the industry. And I asked kind of why that was, and they had kind of an interesting take on it. And it was basically that they just didn't want to reach out and talk to a shop. Like, do you see that?
It's definitely prevalent in our industry. I think what Shawn was talking about, you can find individuals with a lot of drive that are really interested in pursuing a career where we're at, but you might also find a group of individuals that choose it as I don't want to say a means to an end, but it's a way to make a paycheck. So
pay the bills, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So, Josh, with you being around for a while, do you have any concern about diesel techs leaving the industry at all? And maybe I asked this on the automotive panel, and I think it might be more prevalent on the automotive side, but have you seen any techs, and this can go to any of you guys, but I'll ask Josh first. Have you seen techs leave for maybe a different trade or maybe a different career altogether?
Honestly, I haven't seen many techs leave the trade. It's more or less trying to get people to come in.
Yeah.
Is our biggest concern right now.
Yeah. And I think that's pretty common, right? Like the automotive side, it was interesting because when we talked to those guys, they're seeing a lot of veteran techs leave the industry. Everybody on that panel they knew multiple people that had left the industry. It's a little different on the diesel side because I think when a kid gets into the diesel industry, they kind of know what they're getting into, or maybe they've got, similar to what Ryan had with a cousin that was passionate about it and was able to kind of relay that passion over. It is a little bit different than automotive in that regard. Let's talk about the kind of an elephant in the room thing that I think is always wanting to get talked about and really doesn't, is pay. And what you're paid for as a technician. Give me an idea in the diesel business where you feel we're at for pay. Are we on track? Are we getting closer to on track? Are we completely off? And maybe Kaleb, I'll start with you. You've worked for a couple different shops. How do you feel? And really, what I'm looking for here is kind of a candid answer, and when it comes to how you're paid, right? Not maybe even just the dollar amount, but how you're paid. Do you feel like we've gained steam there, that it's moving in the right direction, or do you not see it as a problem at all?
Well, being that I've worked for a couple different companies, I've always kept hourly pay, which I think is huge. It definitely comes in handy being Midwest here. A lot of rust and garbage going on in vehicles that they don't account for in book time. That is something that has always kind of boggled my mind, is when they can put a number on something of a brand new vehicle and just expect it to last the rest of its life. As a, every nut and bolt is going to come off the way it's supposed to. And it doesn't happen like that, especially around here. So being paid hourly has been huge for me, because there are jobs that you can just knock out of the park and get done quicker than what you're supposed to. And then there's jobs where you're working on it for a couple days and it's supposed to be a 4-hour job, and it just gets you when you're, especially when you're not hourly. So I've been happy to work hourly.
So are all of you hourly? Is everybody here? And Josh, you can answer that as like your former self as a tech. Are you all hourly as far as tech pay?
My pay was it was hourly, but we also worked off a flat rate as well.
Like kind of a performance incentive type?
Yes, exactly. I mean, if the book time said 6 hours and you did it in 4, you still got paid the 6 hours.
Okay. And Ryan, is it similar with you?
Ours was always hourly. I've worked through 3 different shops that have been paid hourly. So.
Okay. Yeah. And that's, I think, pretty common for the diesel business. I think you are starting to see maybe a shift to more performance incentives, or, really trying to incentivize your best when it comes to the diesel side. And Shawn, I think you guys talked about that a little bit too, right? Where you're maybe doing some more hybrid plans and doing some different stuff to incentivize your high achievers.
Yeah, it's the program that they're rolling in here. They haven't actually started it yet, but we're all on a flat hourly base pay that doesn't change, plus time and a half overtime, which your overtime is basically unlimited. You can work as much as you want. But then they call it an efficiency-based bonus, but it's not efficiency in the fact that you're graded basically on how fast you get a job done, but more so where the bonus is based on how much time we're actually billing out, versus how much time we're actually working.
Okay.
So, and then on top of that, they also are doing a parts bonus as well. So, so it's not huge, but the fact that that's over and above your flat hourly pay should make a big difference. So,
to kind of expand on that, how many of your shops are short techs right now? Like, could all of you use techs right now?
Absolutely, yeah.
So, what is it that isn't drawing techs in? What is it that maybe I want to set the foundation here of, if you were in a position to change anything about the diesel business, whether it's tooling, whether it's pay, whether it's, some type of flexibility, what would you change? And Josh, you've been around a while. Is there anything that really sticks out to you as something where we're losing out because we're not doing it right?
Honestly, there's not much I can think of in that regard. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we're getting more advanced, and it seems like a lot more computer electronics are getting built into trucks. But, I mean, at some point, there still is a lot of physical labor in the job.
Yeah. So do you think, as you look at it, and maybe Kaleb, I'll ask you this, but when you start to look at it, does that physical toll on your body worry you about, like, kind of what your future holds?
I think it really depends on the shop that you're working at too, because I know there's a lot of shops that, we have quite a few lifts at our shop specifically that helps out a ton. But I know there's a lot of shops that run off jacks and jack stands and stuff like that. And there's definitely different facilities that are tolling differently on your body. Luckily, I've been working for a shop that's pretty good at that.
They are, yeah.
And in line, so.
That's good. Ryan, as somebody coming into the field, is that something that you worried about, was the physical toll that it takes on your body, and maybe what future opportunities are there as a result?
Absolutely. It definitely was consideration. You can take just one quick glance into a shop and see that there's a lot of physical labor going on. It's not simple to do so. It's pretty rough on your body.
You guys feel pretty good about the tools your shops provide you with to be able to, whether it is like lifts like Kaleb was saying, or, the measures, the preventative measures to keep you healthy so you're coming back day in and day out? I feel like shops have gotten drastically better over the last 10, 15 years in that regard. Shawn, do you see the same thing?
I agree that the shops have gotten a lot better in the last, dozen years or so. My shop in particular, being a small shop, we're lacking a little bit on that end. We do have hoists for automotive type stuff, but all the big truck stuff and ag stuff is all down on the ground with jacks and jack stands, which hopefully we put a new addition on, and we're supposed to be getting column lifts, so that's going to help drastically. But that's the physical toll is one thing that definitely has crossed my mind more than once, because of the techs that I have worked with in the past year. They've all been older guys, and one was missing a thumb that he lost on the job, and the other guy's got carpal tunnel so bad he can't hardly use his hands anymore, and those guys have both since retired. But that's one thing you think crosses your mind. It's like, well, I'm going to be like that in 30 years when I go, 30, 40 years when I go to retire, or potentially could be anyway. So
yeah, and
to think about.
So if you had to rate your concerns with the industry, where does that rate at? Is that near the top of the list?
I wouldn't. I don't think for me coming into the field, it wasn't one of my top concerns, because I knew whether I was coming into this field or what I ended up doing, I wanted to physically work for a living because I can't stand sitting behind a desk. so I knew no matter what I was going to end up doing, it was going to take a toll on my body. Nothing that necessarily turned me away from this industry or any other industry.
So what I'm getting from you guys is that everything is rosy. There's no problems with the diesel business. We're good, and we don't even have to talk about anything else.
Come work in the diesel industry is what we've got to say.
Yeah. See, this could have just been a commercial to get people in. Like this is great. Do you guys have concerns about the future of the industry? One thing that I see is a concern, and this might be more just chat boxes for or comments from like a Facebook page or whatever, but do you have any concern with like electric? Do you have any concern with like autonomous stuff and how that's going to change what you do? Is there any concern about that?
I got something to say about that.
Yeah.
I just actually went through a couple electrical courses at MATC, just to freshen up on some things, and it's something that I've always struggled with, is the electrical side of things. I've got a lot of people that are helping, and it's awesome because they're willing to do so. But coming from a classroom setting to real world setting, there's still a huge break in between the two. And that's something that concerns me. Younger generation learning in classrooms versus actually putting it to job. There's a large gap there. And if there's not someone there to fill that gap, being another advanced tech or somebody that's willing to take you under their arms and help you through some of that, there's a lot of gap there.
Do you think as a result, Kaleb, that there's maybe undue pressure on a tech when they're coming into the industry? So say they just graduated with their tech school, either certificate or their degree, and they get out there and maybe a shop might expect the world out of them right off the bat?
Yeah, I think it's kind of similar to coming from college or high school and going to a job. If you just came out of a course that's supposed to be training you everything, you come in with maybe a little bigger head than you should, and get leveled out pretty quickly. There's definitely, yeah. I mean, it's interesting for sure.
What about shop culture, Ryan? As you're coming into a shop, how how were you received as the new guy? And you had a little bit of a different kind of coming into the industry type of background with the World Skills, winning or going to World Skills, and I think you got bronze there, right?
Correct.
In Russia, which is pretty awesome. But how is that transition from school to a shop? I mean, is it something where you still have to have thick skin to get in, or is it has that kind of smoothed out a little bit?
I think the thick skin is definitely a benefit. In most shop culture, you're going to find that people get along pretty well. They're going to give each other a hard time. Your parents always used to say boys will be boys. Well, not a whole lot changes in the shop. I mean, we're still going to give each other a hard time. I was received pretty well and have been blessed to have a group of guys that are quite accepting of new people. From the sounds of it, they've had a kind of a revolving door as of late, so they've had a lot of new people in as well. But industry as a whole, it's definitely not a bad idea to have some tough skin to get into the game.
So let me ask you this, and this can go to anybody, but say if you've got a problem in the shop and something, whether it's you need a new tool, you need, maybe some safety training, people aren't just doing, aren't doing things the right way, or you need a different process. Do you feel comfortable going up to management and talking to them about and having that really one-on-one professional conversation with them? And Josh, you've been around the longest. What you've probably built up that repertoire that you've built up that kind of that level of respect. But do you see maybe other techs being able to really go and freely talk to a manager when they have a problem?
Most of our managers have been pretty good, and especially when you're talking about safety concerns, that's one thing in the industry that they've been pushing more and more. So if it comes to a safety issue, they're usually pretty good about responding to it.
Yeah, that's good. And Shawn, do you see that? I mean, are you comfortable? And it doesn't just have to be you, but anybody in industry. Is there an ability to be able to go and have that professional conversation with a manager?
I think it's kind of on a case-by-case basis. I mean, I've only worked here. I don't have experience with other shops, so we have a good working relationship with all the guys here, and we've got a good group here, so we all get along well and we're all comfortable with each other. But I could see being a younger tech, I mean, when I started here, yeah, it was intimidating to go to the bosses and say, hey, I got this issue, can we get it fixed? Or, and I could see techs coming in having that same sort, or in a shop that has, like Ryan said, kind of a revolving door, new guys coming and going all the time. I could see how it could definitely be intimidating to go and confront them with an issue to try and get a fix for it. For sure.
So what's happening at those shops that have the revolving door? What is happening where is it the person they're hiring is not a fit? Is it give me an idea why there's some shops that just seem to have a ton of turnover?
Go ahead.
I think a lot of it's to do with the people that are working there also. Conflict of personalities and whatnot definitely changes a bunch. If there's a bad apple there that just constantly causes problems, it can definitely push people out. But also stress of not communicating from office to shop type thing can cause a lot of issues too.
What's funny to me is when I was managing, and especially on the diesel side for whatever reason, when I was managing techs, I always seemed to, it didn't matter which location it was, I always would have that one tech that was kind of I don't want to say tattletale, but kind of the guy that would always come in and say, hey, Jimmy's not doing a good job. You should fire him. And so like it was always the same guy. And I always tried to get a gauge of how you could tell that dynamic, right? And how people got along, and without getting dramatic, right? Because when you start to get going with, I don't know, the gossip, and it's just not a good way to be. I personally, from a business standpoint, hate gossip. But do you guys see any opportunities there for a manager to get a feel for how well the guys are getting along in the shop? I mean, is it as easy as just going out and having a good personal relationship with the guys or gals, or is there more to it? So rather than just taking the one person and kind of rolling your eyes every time they come in because they just complain about everything, rather than doing that, is there a way to really tell kind of how fluid the shop is, and maybe if a shop is at risk of losing a bunch of people because of one person? And I asked that kind of in a loaded question because I've had it before where maybe a loaded techs just didn't like the service manager, right? They didn't feel like they were being treated fairly by the service manager. They just didn't like him in general. And in some cases, I've had it where they say that service manager just lies to everybody and he needs to be gone. He's not representing us the right way. How do you guys convey that if there's a problem in the shop? Is there an opportunity to do that without coming off as just complaining all the time?
Well, if you don't complain all the time, it's pretty easy that you can sneak in there and say what's going on. It's all about the communication. If you're not communicating with your bosses on a regular basis and the doors aren't open for a good conversation, then a quiet shop starts to spread some rumors pretty quickly. I've seen it. We've gone through a couple service managers and whatnot, and every time something gets quiet and we start talking in the shop and not conveying the messages up front, they have no idea what's going on. So if you keep an open mind and open doors and communication between the front and back and work things out instead of just clamming up or constantly complaining like you're saying, it's really about a good balance of communication.
And maybe I'm just making this up. Maybe I just saw that, but have you guys experienced that person at your jobs?
Yep.
Yeah.
And from a manager's standpoint, to any techs that are out there, and if you could be that person, stop being that person, because it drove me nuts as a manager. And it started to get to the point to when there actually was an issue where I just didn't take it all that serious, right? Because you kind of become numb to it. And that's where if I could give advice to techs and how they want to make their impact, or when they say something, typically the ones that didn't say much, or were typically trying to help out and not saying it in kind of a condescending way, but really when they came out and they said, hey, listen, something's not right here. And when they said that, that's when I listened, right? That was like my trigger to say, okay, something's really not right here. We need to start talking to people. And so I think that's a really valuable lesson, even for young techs out there that come in and are, I think we all came in wanting to set the world on fire. And as Shawn probably knows better than anybody, I was never shy about kind of stating what my displeasure was. But I didn't. I did not want to be that person. And as I shifted to management, I started to see where that really was a painful thing when you had that person kind of constantly coming in your office all the time. So that's good stuff. What about the future of the industry? And when I talk about that, what would you like to see change? Is there anything that, as we look and more technology is added, more specialized tools are added, is there anything that you guys want to see that would help keep you in the industry, maybe whether it's keeping your bodies healthy, helping you get some training, helping you get some knowledge? Is there anything there that you guys would like to see? And Ryan, I'll maybe defer to you on this one. Is there, as you look at the future of the business, is there anything that you could see that would help techs?
I think definitely maintaining a good steady flow of incoming training for individuals that are currently working in industry is important. I don't think a whole lot of people do end up permanently in our industry that don't want to be there. And in order to keep them there, keep them interested, keep that fire burning, it's important to provide that training for the up and coming, the refreshing, you name it.
Yeah. Yeah. And Josh, this obviously plays right into the role that you kind of have come up with, or that you're now in with the training side. Do you see opportunities there to kind of help the other techs that are in what you were in for a position, to help them get better, to help them stay in the industry?
Well, training is definitely important as far as that goes. I mean, you definitely want to be keeping up with the current technology, and that's a big part of being good at your job. I mean, when new technology gets released, and if you're not keeping up with it, that definitely hinder your ability to do your job.
And it's funny that you say that, Josh, because I was actually down at Truck Country a couple weeks ago in Dubuque, and they were giving me a kind of a walk through the training area and going through some of the technology. I've not been out of the diesel business for that long, and already things have, I mean, I would be lost if I had to go out to a truck and try to figure something out on my own. So, I mean, that shows you how fast that evolves and how fast that changes, because when you start looking at the different emission systems and the computers, I mean, there's just so much there, and that's not news to anybody here. But I mean, is that a concern at how fast technology is moving?
I mean, to us, yeah, because we're a small town shop. We don't have a lot of the tools and training and stuff available to us that a lot like the dealerships and stuff do. But yet we are still working on all the same equipment. Yeah, it's definitely a concern for us, keeping up with the new technology coming out, because like you had said, I mean, in the last 10 years, the technology has changed immensely, and not having the proper tools to diagnose and information to help with that diagnostics is definitely frustrating, to say the least.
Well, and I think that's what I love about this panel here, right, is we've got a diverse panel, whether it's, maybe a Diesel Forward, which is more of kind of an independent organization versus a Truck Country. We've got dealer representation, we've got independent representation, co-op, and both truck and equipment. Do you see parallels between truck and equipment? And I know there's a few of you here that have experience on both. Do you see your skills translating back and forth pretty well, or do you have examples of maybe a tech that was at a truck shop and went to work on equipment, or vice versa? Do you think that's I guess those two things intersect fairly well?
I can pipe in there real quick. I actually did come from a truck background all through my education time, with a fair deal of experience. I spent the majority of my time that wasn't in school at work. Moving to an equipment shop, the emission side of things has followed on highway with a trail of maybe 2 to 3 years, and the rest of your systems on a piece of equipment all operate on the same basic principles as they do on a truck. So they are undoubtedly paralleled quite closely.
And Shawn, I think you were going to add something there.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yeah, I mean, as far as like engine emissions and all that sort of stuff, yeah, they definitely follow for sure. Some of on our equipment, our fertilizer application equipment, some of the systems we're diagnosing are not necessarily used as far as the GPS guidance and all that sort of stuff. We obviously don't have that in the trucks. So that can be a little trying sometimes and we don't work on them all the time. So when we get thrown in and say, here, my guidance isn't working, can you figure it out in the field? I need to be going in an hour. It's like, well, okay, I got to reteach myself every time I work on it. So.
We see that a lot on the recruiting side, right? And this is maybe a message to more of the shops that are listening to this roundtable, and that might have hesitation taking a truck tech over to work on equipment or vice versa. There are a lot of things that translate. It's just a matter of kind of learning that that piece of equipment or that truck, and what's, even the simple stuff of like how do you find parts for it, right? And if you have to go look up Cummins parts, I don't know if it's gotten better, but at one point it was a really, really tough thing to go into. I forget what the program was with Cummins, but to try and find parts if you weren't super familiar with it. So I can see where that could be different. So I want to get a message across to the managers, right? And when I say that, more so kind of from the horse's mouth, are there opportunities for managers, for shops that aren't super expensive? I'm not talking about building a brand new shop and having all the nicest equipment in the world or anything like that. Are there simple things that a shop can do to set themselves ahead of other shops in how they treat technicians, how they are, perceived amongst the technician industry? Because I think for me, what I see is techs know a lot of techs, right? There's a lot of techs that hang out together, and they know. I have an example of a dealership that we recruited for, and we talked to a whole bunch of techs in that area, and they were just like, I would never work for that dealership in 100 years. Like, it's bad. And when I talked to the dealership, they would say, oh, we have great management. We have great management. And I'm like, I'm not hearing that at all on the other side. So when we see that, Kaleb, are there ways for a shop to kind of change, maybe not even change the reputation, but maybe some simple things that a shop can do to really help with treating techs great?
I think, again, that's comes with personality and stuff too. The morale in the shop is greatly uplifted by a manager that's not afraid to tell you when you're doing a good job, when the shop is looking good, when you're keeping things clean. Just a little bit of positive feedback goes a long ways out in the shop, because as soon as someone hits the negative train, it seems like everybody likes to hop on it and just roll with it. And when you get on the negative side of things, it just goes downhill real quick. So trying to keep things positive, trying to give your guys, your employees, attaboy once in a while, or, come out and just give them a little, like, it's a simple thing that our company does every once in a while. Our bosses, buy the guys pizza or something, just small things just to say, hey, you guys are doing a good job. Thanks for dealing with all the struggles we're going through, whatever. So that kind of stuff helps a bunch.
That's great, Kaleb. Josh, would you have anything to add to that?
No, I think he pretty much hit it on the head. You usually only ever hear about a job that you messed up. It's kind of rare to ever hear about when you did something good, but it's nice to hear it when you do. Yeah,
and I think a lot of that goes to training of service managers too, right? And one thing that I've noticed a lot over the years is a lot of times that service manager hasn't had a whole lot of training when it comes to maybe true leadership or management type training. And maybe they were a tech that came out of the shop and they just kind of set them there. And I think you guys understand this as much as anybody, but it's a different job altogether. It takes a different skill set to move into the office. Shawn, when you look at it, do you see opportunities for training on the soft skills side of like, if say, hey, you know what, my body's starting to get beat up, I want to start looking at transitioning to a different role. Do you see opportunities to do that?
In our particular shop, not necessarily. You basically have the service manager and then you have us. There's no real in between. But there is a small niche, for like diagnostics and stuff. That's really a kind of a specialty thing that, if you aren't able to do the high demanding physical work, you could definitely open up a door there to be the electrical diagnostic, engine diagnostics kind of guy, and help save your body a little bit by doing more so that.
Yeah, and Ryan, being that you're 1 year in, do you see opportunities for maybe even having a discussion about what you want in your future, and with management, whether it's, hey, in 10 years, I'd like to be a service manager or whatever. I don't know what you guys would desire. I wouldn't put you on the spot to even ask you that. But if you have in your gut an idea of like where you want to go with your with the talent that you have, do you think there's opportunities for some of the soft skill stuff over and above like the technical training?
Absolutely. I've been pretty forward about making sure that where I'm at, people know what my goals are timeline wise. My goal is to move out of working with my hands at some point, just because it is physically demanding. But I see incredible value in service managers, shop foremans that have the time. They've been there, they've seen umpteen different problems, and they've turned wrenches. Those people are the strong foothold for a good manager. After that, it does include soft skills, though.
Do you ever feel like, and this can go to any of you guys, where have you ever worked in a situation where maybe your manager didn't have a great, whether it was a great skill set for managing, or it just didn't have the training to, the leadership training to kind of move into that role, and they were kind of unready for it? And I don't think you're ever fully ready. It's like taking a bucket of water and dumping it over your head when you go into the office. But I don't know if Kaleb, you've got any experience with that and seeing that, where maybe the transition wasn't so smooth, or if it's obviously with Diesel Forward, you guys do a great job with all of that. But have you ever seen that where maybe it was kind of maybe not a fit?
We have. I've been there for 3 years now, and we actually did go through a transition where an excellent manager, he was in the shop, he worked his way into the office, was doing an incredible job, blocked a lot of the money push from up top from getting to the shop, and was really good at, telling us that we're doing a good job, even if things were getting pushed negatively from the top down. He took a different position in the office setting due to some family stuff, whatever else. And then they brought somebody in that didn't have any mechanical background whatsoever, but they were very good at the money side of things. So that pushed into the shop really quickly and became a very sore subject, a very, back on the negative side of things, constantly pushing money, and not looking at the fact that you got to keep pushing money like that. You have to get the tooling and the people to get the money through the door. So it's a balance.
Do you think that's changed? And maybe, again, I'll probably defer to Josh on this because you've been around for so long. But to me, something that I've noticed in all techs, right, automotive or diesel side, is it really shifted from kind of that department of like, okay, it's in the back there, don't bother us in the front, to more of a, like, this is a business, right? This is truly performance matters. You are running a business to make money. And I think some of that pressure gets conveyed to the techs. Have you seen a shift in, I guess, the industry in going from just that, whether it was back in the day when they were charging $30-40 an hour, where there really wasn't a whole lot of pressure, to now where you're upwards of 100, and some cases, 140, 150 an hour, where now it's true. I mean, it's a lot of money that's on the line for every hour you book out. Have you seen a shift to where it is, it feels like more of a business than it was, 10, 15 years ago?
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right about that. Within the last 5 years, for sure, I'm going to say that they've been pushing it a lot more. And as far as the managers go, you asked that question kind of earlier, and that kind of falls back to what Kaleb said. It is really nice. I understand the money side of it, but as far as what Kaleb said, it is nice to have a service manager that actually has some background in the field to at least be able to comprehend what you're talking about when you have an issue, why your job ran 2 hours over, or something to that effect.
I agree. Do you guys get talked to about the business side at all? Like why it's important to bill hours, why, maybe the pressure that a service manager or even the company's under in general, right? If you have a bad quarter in a different part of your business, or if your business is just repair and you have a bad quarter where maybe work's not coming in, do you guys feel like you get that relayed to you as far as the pressures that are going on in the shop? And Ryan, I'll ask you about that. Do you get the feeling that you get the full story when it comes to kind of where you're at, as a company financially, and why it's so important for you to produce?
Yeah, our service manager currently is incredibly transparent with what he's being faced with and what he's expecting of us. He had come out of a technician position. He's got the background, but has also had training in management. He's got some experience in management now. He's really good about maintaining an open channel of communication and letting us know what's going on.
So that transparency part, Shawn, pretty important?
Absolutely, yeah. My current service manager is very good as well. He's a active technician in the shop as well. He works right alongside of us, and he's very open about what's going on, what pressures he's seeing from above, and everything, and that helps immensely. But also at the same point, they can't be pushy and say, hey, you gotta be better. We need more money and all that sort of stuff. And it's all in how they come across and telling you that information is to make, whether they're pushing you or encouraging you.
Well, and I feel like that's a difference between a good manager and a great manager, right? If they can be transparent to kind of tell you what their stresses are without freaking everybody out and making it feel like the boat's sinking, to really be able to convey that, hey, listen, we need to get more booked here because of X, or like there's certain things. And I think if a manager can be transparent with that information as to why it's important, why is it important that you bill those hours, why is it important that we get these jobs done when we promise them, rather than just coming out and yelling at you when it doesn't happen, right? And I think that's what I see a lot in the industry is just if they're frustrated. And to me, the hardest part about being a service manager is getting your butt chewed on the phone and then going out to a tech and talking to them about, if it's some piece of rework or something like that, and not using that emotion that you just got yelled at to go take it out on the tech, and being able to, for you service managers out there, being able to translate that to where it's actually a teachable point and not just going and chewing somebody out is something where I feel like the industry has changed a lot. We still have a long way to go in order to get that message across, because if you just go out and start screaming at everybody all the time, people just stop listening to you, and that you stop becoming an effective leader. So Kaleb, go ahead, Shawn. What were you saying?
Or what worse yet, they'll leave.
They'll leave, and we see it a lot right now, right? Techs have a lot of opportunity out there. They have the ability to pick up their toolbox and go somewhere else, right? And that's not I don't think any tech wants to just constantly threat that by any means. But if they feel like they're being belittled or not respected, I think that's when that's when they start looking, right? And maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I see is most of the time I don't see them leaving because of pay. I see them leaving because of other factors. Is that something that you guys have seen?
For the most part, yep.
Yeah.
And pay becomes something when they do start looking, right? But it's not like, to me, from what I see, they're not always out looking. And I think a lot of shop management thinks that their techs are always out looking. And I don't see that until the pain of working there is harder than the pain of going somewhere else. I don't see them wanting to job hop or wanting to go all over the place. But if you've got a bad culture and you've got, similar to what Kaleb said to start off this roundtable, you've got a bad apple, and if that bad apple is leading your shop, that can be huge issues. I mean, that can just generate a lot of bad morale and, people just not wanting to come to work in the morning. And I think when we look at this, and I think we're in a little bit better shape on the diesel side than the automotive side in regard to technicians, but to me, to simplify this for a shop, that, whether it's dealer, independent, truck, machinery, you've got to make it so your techs want to come to work. And when that stops happening, that's when people start looking. And it can happen for a variety of different reasons. But do you guys agree with me, or am I completely nuts?
I think you hit that on the head.
Yep.
Good. I think that's good, though. I mean, overall, our conversation today is, we're kind of rolling up on our time here, but I think that's the common theme that we're trying to get across, is that when we talk about the voice of technician, we're trying to get this out there, right? We're trying to get this out to management and be able to drive conversations that really make it nice to come to work every day. And the beautiful thing about the four of you here is that you like your jobs, right? You like where you're working at. They treat you well. And I don't think everybody's got that same feeling. And I'm sure you guys have some friends in the industry that might not feel that way. To kind of wrap this up, I want to talk about that a little bit. Do you have a gauge of the pulse of the industry in terms of whether it's other friends that are in the industry, or people that are like, hey, that sounds like you have a pretty cool place to work at. I don't see that where I'm at. Do you hear that from other techs?
I think I'll go in on this. I think from where I'm sitting, our facility is kind of in between a small shop and a dealership. We've got a lot of tooling, a lot of OE stuff that is awesome for us as technicians for diagnostics. But there are some things that we fail on still, being somewhat of a smaller shop, that make it a little more difficult. It really, I think the question that you're asking really depends on the size of the shop and the tooling, really, that make a huge difference there. And then to go in a little bit on your previous question about wanting to come to work, that's one of the issues for getting the younger generation to work right now too, for the new guys coming in. That's something that I think generation wise is going to become harder and harder to get them interested in coming into a physical career. Something that obviously is going to be harder to take care of than just keeping employees.
I think that's a good point. Ryan, go ahead, Shawn.
I would say I'd like to add something to that on the same lines. I agree 100%. Getting kids to want to physically work is tough, but a lot of that I feel like is partially our job and everything, but it needs to be pushed in or said in school, in high school and stuff, when kids are trying to decide what they want to do, that you can make a really good living with actually working for a living and not have to go to 4+ years of school.
Right.
Well, I love that. And you don't have to have the debt. You learn a skill set that can, I say this to young people all the time, is the value of having that skill set. So someday when you're in a position like Josh, where you can move up into a trainer role, Josh wasn't a tech. He's not as valuable as a trainer, right? Like the fact that he had all of that experience and they want him to convey his knowledge to other techs is a big deal. And I don't know if we tell that story enough. I think from maybe a tech school industry standpoint, we try to sell people so hard on the money side, and we try to sell them so hard on like, hey, come to this industry because you don't have to get dirty, and it's not overly true. Like, you still have to get really dirty. Like, there's still days where you're going to have oil all over you. Ryan, do you think, are we selling the right thing to the younger generation? Or like, when you look back to your days when you're in high school, you obviously knew about the industry a little bit, but when you see somebody that's trying to get people into a program or into a shop, are we selling the right things?
I think a lot of it for younger individuals does come down to the money, but they don't have the experience of having made that paycheck before. So the big numbers look all flashy and fun. A lot of it for me, truth be told, was the feeling of being rewarded. Having something that I enjoyed doing made me feel rewarded for having done it. Diagnosis and repair is just something that turns my crank. It might not be for everybody, but that's a big part of what we do. Is something comes in broke, and it's our job to make it work again. And I think that a lot of people can find meaning and value in something like that. Did
you feel like when you were in high school and you said, hey, I'm going to tech school, or I'm going to go work in a shop, do you feel like at that point the guidance counselor kind of just said, okay, I don't have to deal with this person anymore? I mean, do you guys get that feeling that it was more just, oh, you're not going to a 4-year school, see ya?
It was stigmatized where I was at, most definitely. I think everywhere that you look right now, 4-year college is pushed very hard because we work in a dirty trade.
Kaleb, did you have something to add there?
I said, what the guidance counselor?
Yeah,
that's something huge. There's, I don't know, the push for the 4-year college was definitely big when I was in school, but I took so many auto classes and woodworking classes because I knew that this was the type of thing that I wanted to do in life. And when they started talking the prices for going through like an auto class or auto college and stuff like that, and what I was doing in my auto classes already, I had a dad that taught me very well how to turn wrenches from the beginning. I was like, you're going to charge me that much to teach me something that I can already do for the most part. And that was something that kind of blew my mind. So being able to teach them hands-on and get them out of a 4-year college, I think would be maybe a better draw than, hey, look at all the money that you can make and whatnot. But
I agree.
They definitely need to know that it's a hands-on job up front.
Yeah, and there's still a lot of kids that like to get their hands dirty, and I think a lot of times we almost make it so intimidating for them coming in that, you're going to work on this big piece of equipment or this big truck, and it kind of pushes them away, right? And that's where I feel like as an industry, the more you can get kids exposed to that at an early age, if you can bring them in, do a show and tell kind of thing with middle schoolers, just getting them exposed to the industry is so important, and something that won't pay off tomorrow for you as a shop, but probably in 10, 15 years could definitely pay off for you. So, all right, guys, we're kind of running up on our time. My last question is going to be about advice for managers. And I don't know, we covered a lot here over this hour, but if you had anything to tell managers out there that, and this is a broad subject or a broad topic, is there anything that you'd want to kind of get home with a manager, like it just really to hopefully land as a part of this discussion? Shawn, maybe I'll start with you.
I guess the one thing that I could give advice, I mean, our manager does some, but constantly looking for new classes to keep your techs up to date on new technology, and even going back and refreshing on old technology, I mean, is huge too, because, I mean, for us techs that enjoy what we do, I mean, going and learning about new technology and stuff, I mean, it's exciting for me. I actually like enjoy going and learning new things. So, rather than the techs, constantly having to look for new classes to keep themselves up to date. I mean, management, I feel like, should be doing the same as well, because it's only going to benefit them in the long run as well to have your techs as up to date as possible.
100% agree. Josh, any parting words for managers, or any type of advice or anything that you'd want to say to kind of the management group?
No, what he said as far as training, definitely it's important. Keeping your techs up to date on the current technology is an important thing. As far as, like you were talking about, the respect, morale is a big thing too. I mean, when you make a mistake, first off, they should say something to you. A lot of times I feel like they're afraid to say something to them to offend them anymore. But just as long as they're bringing it in a respectful manner, just discuss it with you, not about you, and just in a respectful manner.
I agree with you there, Josh. Kaleb, any kind of parting words for you?
I think I kind of hit a bunch of different points on that throughout the thing. Constant communication, honesty between the two. The technician needs to be honest and open about things that are going on. If you do make a mistake, be honest about it. It's a lot easier for a manager to react calmly when you are upfront with the situation, instead of trying to hide it or cover it, or constantly making mistakes, and then you're right into the negative side of things again. But being positive, being open, being honest makes a huge difference, and trying to invest in your technicians, because just like everybody here said, if you invest in them, they will only get better and make you more money.
I agree. Ryan, any parting words from you?
I think Kaleb definitely hit the nail on the head talking about positivity in the shop. Maintaining a mutual respect between technicians and managers is important, but keeping your guys happy, keeping the mood upbeat and positive really has a profound effect in the shop.
I agree, and that sets the tone for everything. I want to thank you guys for joining me tonight. I think as we go through this and we talk and really dissect what you had to say, I think we can bring a lot of good actionable items out of this. And so thank you so much for coming on, sharing your stories, sharing kind of your insights on the industry. Hope to have you on again at some point here and really kind of keep this conversation going, because I think that's truly, when we talk about Voice of Technician, that's what we're talking about. We want you guys to tell us what's going on, what's the pulse of the industry, what can we do to improve. So I think you guys did a really, really good job at that, and thank you so much for joining us, and hopefully it was a good time for you guys too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank